Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. Many of you have asked me to do some sort of sideboarding guide at one point or another, and given that I've been running this relatively radical new build of Modern Merfolk with 2 CMC counterspells in the main deck, along with 4 copies of Benthic Biomancer, I thought now would be a good opportunity to sort of dive into some sideboarding decisions, because, you know, when you're running a new sort of approach, a new strategy, your sideboarding will inevitably change somewhat as well to, you know, accommodate what the main deck is trying to do. And of course, the metagame always shifts around, you know, from month to month. So I wanted to start here with, you know, just a quick view of what I've got in the deck. And then I'm gonna just take a quick look at the 15 top decks in the format and, you know, kind of quick and dirty, go through my thought process of how I want to sideboard against those decks, you know, based on what their primary strategy is and how we can work to basically defeat that strategy while also, you know, furthering our own strategy. I'm sure I'm gonna say some things you disagree with. Maybe you'll learn some things from me, and I hope you guys will leave comments so I can learn from you. Whenever, you know, a new idea comes up like this, it just helps when the community comes together and shares all of their ideas and all of their testing. So the way my sideboard currently looks is pretty similar to the way that it looked, I think, all the way back when I did the first sort of Benthic Biomancer deck tech. I've still got some Tidebinder Mages, Cliques, Vensers, Relics, but I think initially I had the surgical extractions, and at this point I don't have those anymore. I do have 2 Dismembers. It just seems like it's good insurance against all of the black-green X decks. I guess there's Rock and Jund. And if they land Dark Confidant or Tireless Tracker, we can lose the game just because they get so many cards. So Dismember is a great answer against that guy. Obviously also good against decks like Devoted Company, where or other creature-based combos like Saheeli if it pops up. Dismember, just a good all-around card to have. You guys know that. It's been in our deck from time to time for years now. I still have the second Echoing Truth, complementing the first in the main deck. Still have the second Vendilion Clique, same thing, there's one in the main deck. The 2 Vensers are the same. I have a third Tidebinder Mage. I had previously just had 2, but it just seems so good. It's excellent against Burn, and it's definitely one of the most popular, like 2 or 3 decks right now in the format. Really solid against the Izzet Phoenix decks because taps down Phoenix, taps down Drakes. Good against Jund, all the mid-range. So it's possible I might even want 4 Tidebinder Mages, but running 3 for now. 4 Relics, just a really, really great all-around card. Good against like graveyard-based combo decks. Obviously like Living End, Goryo's Vengeance, but also much more popular decks. Again, the black-green decks. Really good against Izzet Phoenix. Really solid against Grixis Shadow. I'm probably forgetting some, but just an all-star, total mainstay of the sideboard. And you guys probably notice over here, I have a couple of Dispels instead of the 5th and 6th 2 casting cost counterspells. I used to have 2 Deprives, but, you know, the format's very, very fast, and sometimes we need a counterspell that's a little more agile. You know, say we'll have 3 mana, and we really want to cast a creature, but we also really want to leave up counter magic. Dispel can do that. Big things that we can hit are, you know, Cryptic Command, trying to tap down our team. Basically anything out of Grixis Shadow. You know, they have Kolaghan's Commands and Lightning Bolts and all that stuff that tries to kill our creatures. Fatal Pushes, Dismembers. A well-timed Dispel can win a game against that deck because they get their life total down so low. So if they try to kill, you know, a Master of Waves and we Dispel their removal spell, that, you know, that's that. So yeah, a lot of decks run instants. Again, Burn is one of the most popular decks, and they have a ton of instant spells. So I'm choosing to go with Dispel for the time being. Again, to try to have a bit more of an agile approach. I don't want to always have to hold up 2 mana for my counter spells. You know, there are situations where we get a little bit backed up on our mana. I am currently on 2 Mutavaults. I've gone up to 3 and then back down to 2. I just feel like with Field of Ruin everywhere, 2 feels good. Sometimes when you have 3, you know, you can get stuck on like 2 Mutavaults and no islands. It's very rare, but I just want to be able to cast my Wizard's Retorts. Also want to be able to cast, you know, Vendilion Clique and all my Merfolks. So this is how the deck looks. So I'm going to go over into Chrome here, where I've got MTG Goldfish open to the modern metagame. I've got a bit of a sideboarding chart laid out here. I'm going to take a sip of my water before I jump in. Okay, so down here on the bottom, I've laid out all the non-lands in the deck. I've got the Vial, Seas, Retorts, Truth as the non-creatures, and then Ben, Silvergill, Trickster, Harbinger, the 8 Lords, Master of Waves, and the Singleton Clique. The only thing not included there is the lands. If I sideboard out a land, I'll just explain it, you know, as I'm going along. Here are the sideboard cards: 4 Relic, 3 Tidebinder, 2 Dispel, 2 Dismember, 2 Venser, 1 Clique, 1 Truth. And I'm gonna go matchup by matchup, open up a sort of sample deck list, look at what they're trying to do, discuss their strategy, and talk about, you know, what we want to do with our games 2 and 3. So here's Izzet Phoenix. Currently appears to be the top deck in the format with about 10% of the meta. That's impressive. And let's see, creatures. They've got Thing in the Ice, trying to bounce our team. They've got 2 Young Pyromancer. Not sure how stock that is. They've got 4 Arclight Phoenix coming back from the graveyard, and they've got 2 Crackling Drakes. Beyond that, they've got Faithless Lootings, Gut Shots, Lightning Axe, Lightning Bolt, Opt, Serum Visions, Sleight of Hand, Thought Scour, Monomorphose. So pretty clear that, you know, excuse me, something like Chalice of the Void would be excellent against this deck if you just look at this row of, you know, 1-drop casting costs. But I don't really love playing with Chalice of the Void, so that's not going to be an option for my list here. But you can see straight away that Tidebinder Mage is going to be pretty solid in this matchup, especially against the Crackling Drakes. That can be a card that we can have a really hard time dealing with. It's got 4 toughness, so even if we get, you know, Vendilion Clique on the board, it's only ever going to be able to chump against a Crackling Drake, which can be decent because, you know, it can be a fast race between us and them, and just stopping, you know, them from hitting for 8 or something with Crackling Drake by chump blocking with a Vendilion Clique can be pretty good. But Tidebinder Mage can just lock this guy down, and in order to unlock it, they're going to need to spend, you know, Lightning Bolt or Lightning Axe, getting rid of the Tidebinder Mage. In the meantime, you know, hopefully we'll be developing Lords and Master of Waves. Tidebinder Mage not incredible against Young Pyromancer, but we are going to be bringing in Echoing Truth because it's really good against Thing in the Ice. If Thing in the Ice flips and we bounce it back to their hand, or even, you know, if it gets down to 2 counters or 1 counter and we bounce it back to their hand with Echoing Truth, just they lose all the value from the previous sorceries and instants they spent taking it down. They'll have to recast it. They'll have to cast a bunch more sorceries and instants. Echoing Truth, great against Thing in the Ice, but also potentially against Young Pyromancer tokens. If a bunch of Arclight Phoenixes come back from the graveyard, you can bounce all of them back to their hand and reset that part of their strategy. Crackling Drake, even though it draws a card when they cast it, it still costs 4 mana and blanks 1 attack for, you know, a lot. This guy can get really big. I often see it as a 7/4, 8/4, 9/4. So spending an Echoing Truth to bounce this back to their hand, force them to recommit 4 mana to recast it, is a good play. So the second Echoing Truth is definitely coming in. I am going to bring in the extra counterspells. They're the 2 Dispels. Hits Gutshot. That's not one where we're going to necessarily want to counter, but can counter Lightning Axe, Lightning Bolt. Not going to counter Opt, Serum Vision, Sleight of Hand. Probably not Thought Scour either, but maybe Monomorphose, since it costs 2 mana and draws them a card and keeps their mana flowing. Dispel can sort of shut off a potential turn where they're trying to chain spells to get their Arclight Phoenixes back on the battlefield. So just as a little bit of protection, it seems like Dispel would be solid. And I believe I'm going to keep the main deck counter spells in. So let's check out what they're bringing in against us, because that's what we're going to be facing in games 2 and 3. So when we sideboard, we always need to keep in mind what they're doing against us. So if they see our counter spells in game 1, they may bring in a Dispel. That's not really that big of a worry. Flame Slash, they'd probably bring in against us. Obviously, Dispel's not great against that. They'll probably bring in these Ancient Grudges. AEther Vial can be really great for us. And they're probably going to expect us to bring in Relic of Progenitus, which we definitely are. So yeah, I mean, I see Izzet Phoenix, and what I'm going to do here is, let's see. We're going to bring in the Relic, so let's go +4 Relic. Oh, sorry. This is spreadsheet, so I have to put a little thing here. Yeah, there we go. So +4 Relic, +3 Tidebinder. I'll just write TB here, I think. I'm not so sure about the spells since we have the other counter spells anyway, and they don't have a ton of instants. This is actually pretty useful for us to look through what they're actually doing against us. The only instance that they have, that we might want to counter potentially is a Lightning Bolt, Monomorphos. But we're much more concerned about Anger of the Gods. We could potentially counter like a Crackling Drake, which would be amazing value. So for now, just to leave more space, let's assume we're not going to bring the Dispels in. Dismember seems solid. That's one of our few ways of dealing with Crackling Drake. Can also deal with an unflipped Thing in the Ice. So let's go +2 Dismember. And that just about fits. And just type Demember. Yeah. Okay, so next, Venser is more bounce, and it seems good. Bounce is always great against this deck. Let's see, +2 Venser. Wow, we have a lot of sideboard stuff against him. I don't know if we have enough to take out. I guess we'll see. +1 Clique. It's a flyer. It gets rid of something valuable in their hand. I'll talk about Clique more in just a second, and definitely bringing in this second Echoing Truth. So Clique is interesting because when you use it, you can use it whenever you want based on what the opponent's doing. If you expect them to flip your team, you can flash it in like on the end step so that you have a body that you can keep attacking with after they bounced everything else. Of course, you can do it during their draw step to take something out of their hand. The problem is that they have the lightning bolts to operate at instant speed, but as we saw, they don't have a ton of instant speed effects. So if you do hit them with Vendilion Clique during their draw step, the only instant spells they can cast are Gut Shot, which can deal with the Vendilion Clique, but you're forcing them to do something when you want them to. You're not giving them the flexibility to do it whenever they would otherwise do it. So they could use Gut Shot, Lightning Axe, Opt, Thought Scour, Monomorphos. So they could potentially trigger Arc-like Phoenix during their draw step if we go for it. They could also flip a Thing in the Ice, but they need very particular cards to do that. So just be aware of how many cards your opponent has in hand, what is going on their board, whether they might flip the Thing in the Ice. And, the flash ability that Clique has is nice and flexible and very welcome in this matchup. So that's a ton of cards in. Let's go ahead and look at what we would take out here. Definitely getting rid of all of the Cs. Let's see, -4 Cs. And then let's see what else we can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, it's probably too many cards coming in, but that's a good problem to have. I think we definitely want to leave the Vials in. Definitely want to leave the Retorts, especially since we're not bringing in the Dispels. Ben's a nice low-to-the-ground threat that can help, loot and hit these sideboard cards we're bringing in. Definitely not cutting Silvergills. Definitely not cutting Tricksters or Harbingers. Oh, I'm sorry. I should write 2 Harbingers here. Now, my list only has 2 Harbingers. Other lists have, up to 4. Harbinger is one of our best cards in this matchup, particularly against Thing in the Ice, because if that thing flips, we can just bounce it back to their hand and totally just resets it. Especially funny with AEther Vial, because if they bounce our team, try to attack with, you know, their Awoken Horror, we can just bounce it back with AEther Vial immediately. So let's see. Possible we might want to sideboard out some number of lords. They don't tend to go super wide, and we do have Master of Waves, which is incredibly strong against their red removal spells. So, a tricky one here. So let's see. I guess the question is whether Tidebinder Mage is better or worse than Trickster. Silvergill, Ben. So part of what I was thinking in this video is that I would only spend about 3 minutes on each deck, but that's obviously not really going according to plan, since we're actually, you know, looking at all the cards in their deck and trying to make extremely well-informed decisions. So yeah, bear with me, guys. 4 relic. You know, we may not need all 4 relics. We have the only thing that really comes out of their graveyard that we're worried about is the Arc-like Phoenixes. And we've got those fairly well covered between Vendilion Clique as a flying blocker, Echoing Truth to bounce them back, Tidebinder Mage to lock them down, contribute more bodies. So, interesting. Do we want to potentially forego, because Crackling Drake, as you know, counts cards in exile as well as in the graveyard, so Relic doesn't help us out against that, and this deck doesn't run like Snapcaster Mage. So the only thing that Relic helps us with in this matchup is Arc-like Phoenix, and yeah, I'm not really sure that we need that much help against this card. So let's see what happens if I take out those relics. We're left with 7, 8, 9. So what 9 cards could we take out? Now, Trickster, for those of you who don't know, is really nice against Thing in the Ice because if it's got like 1 counter left and they go for a sorcery or instant, you can Trickster the Thing in the Ice in response. It will lose all its abilities, and then when it flips, it'll be tapped, first of all, but it won't have any abilities and it won't bounce our team. So Trickster can basically counter the Thing in the Ice bounce. So I love having Trickster in the matchup. In a way, it's almost better than Harbinger. So let's say that we trim some number of lords. Just to start, let's say 1 Lord of Atlantis and 1 Master of the Pearl Trident. So we're down to 6. This is 7, 8, 9. We would need to cut 3 more cards. Let's see, we're keeping the retorts. Echoing Truth, Seize, Vial is good. You know, I'm not going to do any like play, draw, trimming of lands for the most part here. That's kind of a personal decision in sideboarding, and I haven't been doing it too much lately. I feel like trimming lands is a little bit sketchy when we're trying to hit double blue for Retort. So you guys can share your thoughts on trimming lands. I've been a fan of that in the past, and it may still be correct given the math. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of trimming lands. Let's go ahead and check out what lands they're running, if they have any Field of Ruins or anything like that. No, I don't think so. It's just fetch lands and then blue and red lands. All right, so what other 3 cards can we take out here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't want to go too low on Lords. 6 is still a good number. Island Walk is still going to be relevant a lot of the time. So I guess we can trim 2 bends, or maybe 3 bends. We're the beatdown, though, I guess, in this matchup, right? We are bringing in Tidebinders, and Vensers, and Cliques. They're a little bit slower, but they're very interactive, whereas Ben is not really very interactive. So let's see. What if we just trim all 4 bends? Does that open things up a little bit? Assume that we don't really need the looting because we have such a density of good cards against the opponent. Let's see. Move these down here. Wait, what was that? Let's see. Just rearranging my stuff a little bit. So if we cut 4 and 4, then maybe we only need to cut one of our lords. All right, so if we look at that as a strategy, we're bringing in 3 Tidebinder Mages, which gives us extra bodies to attack with and slow them down, hopefully. 2 Dismembers. We can deal with Thing in the Ice, can kill a Crackling Drake, which is a huge threat. 2 Vensers, again, hopefully bouncing Thing in the Ice. 1 Clique as a flying blocker, potentially removing a threat from their hand before they get to play it. If they draw into a Crackling Drake, taking that out of their hand is going to be amazing. And another bounce effect with Echoing Truth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 9 cards out. 4 Seas, 4 Ben, Lord of Atlantis. Yep, that leaves in all of our interactive creatures, leaves in most of our Island Walk, leaves in our card draw with Silvergill, and leaves in our sort of Haymaker with Master of Waves. All right, so let's keep this moving. Hopefully the next matchup would be a little bit more straightforward. Don't have to spend quite as much time on it. So Grixis Death Shadow. I've been seeing a whole lot of this deck. Now, this is a deck that uses the graveyard a lot. They try to delve with Gurmag Angler. They try to use Snapcaster Mage to get more value out of spells that have gone to the graveyard. Faithless Looting, just as a singleton, but it does try to use the graveyard. So we're definitely going to be bringing in our vials this time. Not our vials, our relics. So let's go +4 relic. Let's see. Next up, just looking at our list, we tend to go -4 Seas. Now, Dispel is one. This is one of the matchups where we, I think, want to bring in Dispel. They have 3 Fatal Pushes, 2 Lightning Bolts. That's 5. Stubborn Denials, they tend to leave in against us because I guess they expect counter spells and bounce spells. They might trim some number of them, but that's 8 instants. 9. Temur Battle Rage is a good one to counter. Dismember is a good one to counter. So I think I'd like to bring in the 2 Dispels. Let's see. +2 Dispel. Tidebinder not useful. Dismember is very useful. So Venser, the games can go long, and you know that bouncing a Delve creature can be really good. So let's go ahead and add the Venser. Clique can go over the top of them, take a threat out of their hand that they top decked. So it's possible we want to bring this in, and I think we also want to bring in the Truth. So move all of this down a little bit. So taking out Seas. And then, again, all of our creature interaction is really good. Master of Waves is amazing. So this is another case of having too many good cards. Oh, so I am definitely going to take out some number of vials. In the past against the mid-range decks, I had been taking out 2 vials. But the way that, I mean, the idea being that vials are bad top decks, but these are generally good matchups that we want to make sure we don't just lose by getting mono screwed, and Vial helps with that. You know, we can potentially keep a 1-land AEther Vial hand, whereas, if we just had 1 land, that would be a mulligan easily. If we keep a 2-lander and then don't draw any more lands, AEther Vial can help open up our game. We can, even if we land an AEther Vial on turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4, it can help us play Magic. So I'd been keeping in 2 AEther Vials, but I was speaking with Nikachu just yesterday, and he was saying that he's been boarding out 1 land and 1 vial. It's very similar in effect to what I'd been doing in boarding out 2 vials, but I think I enjoy the idea of boarding out a land in favor of keeping in 1 extra vial. So I'm going to be trying that out. I may go back on it, but we're going to cut an island and an AEther Vial. So that, let's see, we're up to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards. So we're halfway there. Against Grixis Death Shadow, they've frequently spent removal on Benthic Biomancer, so sort of hard for me to say whether this card is great in the matchup or not. It might be similar to Blue-Red Phoenix, where it's a good matchup, and we have so many decent cards against them that that Ben is not super necessary. Also, they're doing the damage to themselves in the early part of the game, so it's possible that, you know, this early aggression is not super duper necessary on turn 1. So if I go ahead and just cut 4 Bens, then I think that gets us where we need to be, basically. So that's 10, -4, -4, yeah. So 8, 9, 10. I think we have 12 up here. So we can be a little bit more particular, I think. It's possible that 1 click is enough. I don't know that we need 2 clicks. It's not a combo deck exactly. So where we definitely will want clicks, like against, I don't know, Ad Nauseam or Titan Shift or something like that. So let's go ahead and cut that click out of there. Dismember is great. Dispel is good. Venser is good. But we also have, you know, the Tricksters and the Harbingers and the Echoing Truth. So, is it possible that having too many 4-drops is a bad thing in this matchup? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 cards here. Let's make sure I'm not overlooking anything. Trimming 1 Vial, trimming all 4 Cs. The Retorts are great because they can counter their threats. That's one of the best answers that we have to all their threats. I found myself often wanting to draw into counterspells in this matchup. So it's possible that we might not want so many Dispels since we have 4 Retorts. Let's take one more look at the deck. I mean, countering a Dismember on Master of Waves is pretty insane. And then, you know, they have the Fatal Push. So, 10 cards. We have 2 Truths, 2 Harbingers, 4 Tricksters, Members, Dispels. Let's see. We definitely want 4 relics in this matchup. If it was just Snapcaster, we could easily go with two relics or maybe 3 relics. But since they're trying to cast Gurmag Anglers, I think having the full 4 makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's not like it's not an ensnaring bridge matchup or something. So I think we can trim 1 Venser. So, you know, we still have a bunch of bounce and interaction effects with Tricksters, Harbingers, Venser, Echoing Truth, Dismember. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this seems decent to me. Let's go ahead to burn. Well, just double check. So yeah, 10 in, 10 out. And again, I want you guys to share your thoughts on this process because I have my experience, but you guys also have yours. So there's bound to be a number of different ideas that I haven't even thought of. All right, so here we are with burn. Now there's plenty of new burn lists running around right now. Mono red, red black, and then of course, you know, good old Boros, which is what we see here. So we'll just use this as, you know, sort of a baseline of how to sideboard against burn. Clearly they have a lot of instant spells between Lightning Bolt, Boros Charm, Lightning Helix, Searing Blaze, Searing Blood, Smash to Smithereens. What else? Skullcrack, though this isn't really in there anymore. Yeah, plenty of, absolutely plenty of instant spells. So definitely 100% bringing in the Dispels. What else? 3 Tidebinder Mages is a slam dunk against these guys. So let's go ahead and swap those guys. I like to have my highest numbers up on top. We're not bringing in Relic against Burn, even if they have access to Grim Lavamancer. It's just not good value. 3 Tidebinder Mage, 2 Dispels, no Vensers. I don't love Clique in the matchup, and honestly, unless I see an Ensnaring Bridge, I'm not going to have an Echoing Truth in the deck post board. So this is generally a pretty easy matchup to sideboard for. Put in 3 Tidebinders, put in 2 Dispels. I can take out. Now this can be play draw dependent. If you're on the draw, you might want to side out some number of Cs. As I said, Echoing Truth is not wonderful. I think Ben is pretty good. It's just a 1-drop. If push comes to shove, if we have AEther Vial especially, and we're leaving up counter magic, we can try to loot. He's done decent work in the matchup for me so far. So as I was saying, we can take out the 1 Clique. We can take out the 1 Echoing Truth. Right, Truth here. We can take out 1 Seize on the draw, potentially 1 Harbinger. Let's see. So that leaves us with 4 out. Depending on the matchup, you may want to mix up your numbers of how many C's comes out and how many Harbingers come out. If you're playing against black-red, or even like Mardu colors, I think some decks have been running, or Boros, you should probably keep in more C's. But if you're playing against mono-red, which I think actually just won GP New Jersey, or at least did really, really well. If you're playing against mono-red, C's is going to be a lot less important. So you can go ahead and probably take out even up to 3 C's and leave in your Harbingers against mono-red. So yeah, this will vary. I think that since they have so many hasty dudes, Harbinger is a little bit better on the play than typically. You know, Harbinger is something that's usually great on the draw because the opponent will play a creature, we play our land, they attack with the creature, and then on our turn we can bounce the creature. But since even on the play, we play a land, Burn plays a land, plays Goblin Guide, we play our second land on the play. Goblin Guide's already tapped, so we can bounce him. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just say here that, you know, we're cutting 2 C's, but it can be play draw dependent, it can be matchup dependent. So keep your eyes open for what the particular matchup is, what you saw in game 1, and make your decision accordingly. All of our other cards are really good in the matchup. Counter spells, obviously pretty amazing. Ben really can be a tricky card in the matchup. Just having a 1-drop to attack with is pretty solid. Curse Catcher is a little bit better in the matchup, but if things go long, as they can against Burn, you get into sort of top decking situations, Ben can be actually quite good, acting as like extra Silvergill Adepts, looting away extra lands. Trickster gains us time against the really fast creatures. Harbinger, not amazing. I haven't really outlined why, I guess, yet. Is they can just replay their 1-drop creatures very easily. Lords, always good if you can get 3 Lords onto the battlefield. They get 4 toughness and sort of outclass any of the burn spells. Master of Waves is sort of our spell that says I win. And Clique comes out because all their cards do the same thing. And many of them have instant speed, or work at instant speed, so trying to click them away is often not very productive. So yeah, that's Burn. Not one of the most complicated matchups to sideboard. So moving ahead, we have Dredge, which I haven't seen very much of at all in the friendly leagues. So real quick, we can start off with +4 relics. As for Dispel, we can look at the instant spells that they play, and it's really not a lot. They play Dark Blast, but that's dredgeable, so dispelling it is really not amazing. Looting is a sorcery, Reunion is a sorcery, Life from the Loam is a sorcery, Creeping Chill is a sorcery, so Dispel definitely not coming in against Dredge. Tidebinder also definitely not coming in, they don't have any red or green creatures. Dismember is terrible because it puts their creatures in the graveyard. Venser's not amazing because it's quite slow and only really bounces one thing. I guess in theory you could Venser a Conflagrate, which would be pretty good. Bounce it back to their hand. Clique, not amazing because most of their stuff is in the graveyard, not in their hand. Echoing Truth is going to be good to gain us time, so go ahead and sideboard in that Echoing Truth. And I think that's about it. Yep. So Spreading Seas is good. Retort, we might want to trim some number of them, but they do have some haymakers, like Conflagrate, as I was mentioning. If they go for a Cathartic Reunion at sort of a key time, countering that can be pretty good. But they don't have too much. Looking at their sideboard, they're going to have some Nature's Claims to try to deal with our relics. Same with Assassin's Trophies. So, let's see. Oh, what did I do here? I wanted to put Echoing Truth, not +4 Relic again. All right. So what should we take out here? We're going to keep the Truth, keep our creatures. We can take out the Vendilion Clique, I think. Probably take out 2 of our counter spells. We need to make room for... I think Ben is going to be solid in the matchup because we're really trying to dig to our relics. Trickster's not super amazing in the matchup, honestly, because by the time they get like a big board state, tapping down one of their guys isn't really a huge game. If they just have 1 or 2 guys, we're probably winning. And if we need to block, we can just throw like a Silvergill in front of something. But when push comes to shove, if they're going to have 6, 7, 8 creatures, and tapping down one of them with Trickster is often underwhelming. So let's see. I think Seas is always good against them. If you can keep them off green, they often just work with the lands that they have in their opening hand, and if you can take them off of green early and don't let them cast Life from the Loam, they many times have to actually draw a card. Like, you can take them off of their Dredge for a turn. So I really love Seas in the matchup. Let's see. Trickster, Harbinger, Lord of Atlantis, Master of Waves, Vendilion Clique. So definitely cutting the Clique. I like the counter spells, but they don't always win with Conflagrate. Many times they just win with Creeping Chills or with Prized Amalgams. So we can take out some number of Retorts. And as I was saying, I think I'll just go ahead and take out some number of Tricksters. So that'll be the plan for Dredge. We've got 5 cards in and 5 cards out. Let me know if I'm forgetting anything in that matchup. Let's continue on to the next level here with humans. Okay, so this deck has almost entirely creatures. They have Cavern of Souls, so we're going to straight away take out our counter spells. So -4 Retort. Tidebinder Mage is incredible in the matchup because, well, most important, it locks down Mantis Rider. It doesn't really seem like a red creature, but it is a red creature. The Tidebinder Mage really, really great there. Can also lock down a Noble Hierarch if that's necessary or useful. But really, slowing down their Mantis Riders is big game in the matchup. 2 Dismembers, pretty easy choice. And the 1 Echoing Truth, another easy choice. Clique is good because it can trade with a Mantis Rider. Venser, it's possible because it's interaction, but let's go ahead and see, what we want to cut against them. We obviously taking out the Retorts. All of our interactive creatures are going to be amazing. We want to prioritize actually both of our attack plans, like our incisive one with Island Walk and our go wide plan with Master of Waves. So it looks like currently we have a few too many coming in and not quite enough coming out. Because it can be quite tricky well, let's go ahead and look at the lands that this deck runs. They do have, this one has a single island, which is good for us because it can turn on Island Walk. But I don't think we can expect to automatically have Island Walk against this deck. They do have the 4 Kite Sail freebooters. So let's look at this list. The Reflector's Mage, Salia's Lieutenant. They started running Mayor of Averbrook again. So because they run the freebooters, we can want to trim on non-creatures where possible. So I think I might want to trim a single Seize. I think the plan with spreading Seas is draw one of them and resolve it as soon as possible so that it doesn't get ripped out of our hand or that it doesn't get named by Meddling Mage. So that's 5, and then absolutely keeping our vials in. Took all the 4 retorts out, keeping the truths. Ben can be good. Nikachu just uploaded a video where he was running Benthic Biomancer with Chalice of the Void. It's kind of a Nambo, but he played against humans, and Ben did really, really well. It attacked into a 2/2 Champion of the Parish, which couldn't really block because Ben could adapt. So the guy didn't block, and then, of course, Nikachu didn't adapt and just went ahead and played another 2-drop and developed his board. And then he won the game in a turn early because Benthic Biomancer was able to adapt and hit for the final point of damage. So I do like Biomancer in the matchup. Trickster and Harbinger are some of our best draws. We already... Oh, I haven't taken out... Well, I said I was bringing in the Clique. It's interesting. I'm not sure that it's really central to our plan, and they don't always win with Mantis Rider, and we do have the 3 Tidebinder Mages. I'm going to go ahead and not bring in the Clique. That'll bring it down to 5, 6, and if I take out the Clique, I've played some matches against humans with Clique in the deck, and if I'm recalling correctly, the match where I actually drew Clique, I had a Tidebinder to deal with their Mantis Rider. So, what could the Cliques come in for that would be worse? As I said, we can't really trim back on either of our main win conditions of Island Walk or going wide with Master of Waves, and we can't trim on our interactive creatures. So that leaves Silvergills, which we can't ever trim down on. It just doesn't make sense. We could trim some number of Bens and say that we're not the turn 1 team, that we're the the team that's trying to win on turn 4. So yeah, what if I trim 2 Bens and leave in the 2 Cliques? That seems strong. Yeah, maybe I'll go that way. I think I do like having the Cliques because one of the easiest ways to lose to this deck is with Mantis Rider. So let's keep 6. Let's keep the Clique in and just trim 2 Bens, I guess. And again, please let me know your thoughts on all these decisions that I'm making here. So 3 Tidebinders, 2 Dismembers, 1 Truth, 1 Vendilion Clique, bringing us up to 2 Truths and 2 Cliques, of course, with the ones in the main deck. 7 total. 7 total. Okay, let's keep on going. To Storm here. So, Storm. Storm is another matchup where we have a ton of sideboard hate for. So, for starters, we're absolutely bringing in the 4 relics. We're absolutely taking out the 4 Cs. Not bringing in Tidebinders. Definitely bringing in the Dispels. Because that hits Gifts Ungiven, most important. We are going to bring in the 2 Dismembers. Not bringing in the Vensers. They're too slow and their effect is not strong enough. Are absolutely bringing in the Cliques, or the single Clique, and we are bringing in the extra Echoing Truth because Empty the Warrens is one of their main win conditions. So that leaves us with some decisions on what to take out. So that makes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The only things that we're leaving in the sideboard are the 3 Tidebinder Mages and the 2 Vensers. So take out 4 Cs, leave in the counter spells, leave in the AEther Vials. you really want to prioritize hands with AEther Vial against this matchup because you need to develop your board and also hold up counter magic. So took out the Seas, leaving the Retorts, leaving the Truth. Ben has been excellent because an opponent had a Baral on the battlefield, and I had 2 or 3 Bens down, and they were all adapted, so they could attack into the Baral, and he could block one of them, but he was taking damage around the edges from the other Bens. If they had been Curse Catchers or Miscallers, they wouldn't have been able to attack at all because they would have just gotten eaten by Baral. So I like Ben because we really want to draw our hate, and the 2/2 body is extremely relevant. So Trickster is huge because he can shut off their cost-reducing creatures for a turn. Harbinger is an easy cut. I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 Harbingers. And again, we're trying to get up to 12 cards here, so we're halfway there. Okay, we can definitely cut all 4 Master of Waves. Now there are a few situations you'll run into where Master of Waves might save a game, like if they've resolved Empty the Warrens, and you have a couple creatures, and Master of Waves would help you achieve, board parity. Great, but many times we don't even hit 4 lands, or we're playing without an AEther Vial. So Master of Waves is just really too clunky, in a similar way that Venser is too clunky here. All right, so that's -4 Seas, -4 Master of Waves, -2 Harbingers. It brings us up to 10. But we've taken 12 cards in. Oh no, wait, is this just 10? +4, I think it's just 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so this is a really tight sideboard list here. It's basically a ton of excellent hate cards in and nearly useless cards out. So should improve the matchup a lot in game 2. All right, so we're through 5 decks here. I think I might take a break and continue in another video, since this is actually taking substantially longer than I expected it to. But it's not a problem. I'm just going to immediately pick it up in another video. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave your comments down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please check out my Patreon page and tune in for the next video where I'll be picking things up with Tron. Thanks again. Bye.